As a CPA, I've helped businesses go from the ultra small, in the red, about to fail stage, grow to multi-million dollar successful international corporations. And along the way, I have seen 5 regulatory mistakes that show up over and over again. And these could derail you, could be some real stumbling blocks. So let me walk you through them, not just what goes wrong, but what should be done to prevent these things from happening in the first place. So starting a business is really one of the most courageous things you can do. Most people really start a business because they want to serve, they want to take charge of the income and their time. But a lot of times the financial and regulatory side gets really treated as something to do later. Okay, so this is why we want to get ahead of these things, ahead of ourselves on these things, so that you don't get blindsided in the future. So and frankly, our system really doesn't make it easy to take care of these things, but there are some small fixes that can be big helps. So just to be clear, this content is for informational purposes and does not constitute any legal, financial, or tax advice. Just always consult with a CPA or a lawyer before making decisions that affect your business. So let's start with payroll tax miscalculations. It's a really easy mistake to make when calculating payroll. So for example, whether it's the wages when your hours start or classifications of workers, but it's there's an example where East Penn Manufacturing, one of the largest battery operators in Pennsylvania, was found to have violated federal wage laws by failing to pay their employees for all of the hours worked, including the time spending putting on and taking off their protective gear and showering to avoid lead exposure. So their argument was that these people were not really actually working, they're still preparing for work, but actually the employees, because they had to do this for their work, they were obligated to be paid for it. I know Walmart did another thing too, where they had to walk through some things to get the check-in, the clock-in, so employees actually lost time on that one. And so, what happens, like in the Pennsylvania case, a federal jury awarded $22 million in back wages. And also, the Department of Labor is also seeking an equal amount in liquidated damages, and potentially doubling it to $44 million it cost them. So, just making sure that you're paying your employees for all hours worked, including that time that it takes that you've required them to prep for their job. So if there's some steps that they need to take before they prep, before they actually log in, those steps that they need to take, not like, packing their lunch, that's what they should do at home, but, the cleanup, putting on gear, you know, um, filling out a form, if they have to do it for their work, they should be getting paid to do it. Okay. The second common regulatory mistake that I've seen is misclassified workers, and that's a really big one. Are they, um, are they, contractors or employees? Like, are you telling them when and where and how to do their job? If you are telling them that, then they are employees. If you're not telling them that, if you're saying, hey, this is what I need to get done, and you do it however you want, whenever you want, just get it done. That's more like the contractor. But if you are telling them how to do things, on the other hand, that's more employee. So FedEx was a big one. FedEx Ground agreed to pay $240 million to settle those class action lawsuits. After thousands of delivery drivers claimed that they were misclassified as independent contractors, despite being required to do things like follow their schedules. They had to follow a schedule, right? So they had to do it on their time. They had to follow these routes. They had to wear uniforms. They had to have vehicle branding. All of these things are the fundamentals of employee status, and the drivers were denied overtime. So this is how FedEx didn't pay them overtime, right? Because they classified them as independent contractors. So they were denied overtime. They were denied benefits that employees are entitled to. They were denied legal protections. And the courts found that FedEx exercised nearly total control over the drivers, effectively creating that employment relationship in the guise of independent contractor model. So the settlement followed years of litigation and came on the heels of a separate $226 million settlement from California, bringing the total to $466 million. So to prevent this from happening to you, really look at how your employees are working on the job. What are they actually doing? Are you telling them the specifics of how to get it done, or are you simply telling them this is what needs to be done, do it however and whenever you want? So depending on that, you want to make sure that if they are qualified as an employee, that you pay them as an employee. You pay the wages, you put them on a payroll, you include all the benefits, you put them into the tax status, you make sure that you're pulling the taxes out, all of that stuff to prevent this from happening to you. The third is missing their estimated tax payments. So failing to adjust your estimated tax payments after a change. There's going to be a change in your business entity structure. Sometimes those business entity structure changes, people don't actually do all the follow through with their state and their government to make sure that they are doing everything that they need to do with a new business entity status. There's also sometimes a change in business income. Maybe you had a great year compared to the prior year, or any of these things, they can trigger a different estimated tax status. So they can trigger IRS penalties and interest. If income, like a little thing is like if income exceeds $150,000, the IRS requires 110% of the prior year's tax liability to meet these safe harbor rules. Underpayment can really lead to thousands in penalties. So fourth is another area is ignoring state and local requirements. So a lot of times people just get so passionate about what they're providing to their customers. They get passionate about serving their customers, providing a good service, providing a good product, that they're not always paying attention to what the laws are. And the laws are complex. And it's really too much for one person to do everything. So really having this outsourced to like an employee or to an outside company, but just to have one person doing everything is sometimes just too much to keep up on. When a company does sell goods or services, for example, across state lines, they have to comply with the other states' tax nexus rules, which determine whether the business has a sufficient presence to regulate the sales tax collection. So if a business has tax nexus in a state, it has to register with that state's tax authority, collect the correct sales tax, and that can be pretty complicated, and then remit it on that state schedule. There are some outside sourcing services like Avalara that can really help with that, but failure to do so can really lead to really awful audits. Trying to go back, and then they can also include interest and even license suspension. So penalties really vary by state, but often include fines of 10 to 25% of the unpaid tax. So if they had just paid it in the first place, they would have saved a lot. And they also sometimes include interest, like even daily interest. And it's going to be potentially criminal charges if you repeatedly did this, right? Like if you just keep doing it, no matter what people say, you get audited, you get penalized, and then you do it again. So it's really important to keep up on that, and maybe even hire somebody to do it. So proper jurisdictional mapping and proactive registration can really help to avoid all of those complications. And then there is one more about rejecting entity maintenance or neglecting it. When you restructure your business, the new ownership or operating control or leadership, but fail to update your entity status with the state, you're really setting yourself up for costly consequences. There's a lot of things that need to happen. And if you're getting any letters from the IRS, you need to get those fixed. Make sure somebody is handling that. So if you don't do that, the consequences can be far more expensive than the original cost. So any outdated legal records, I've seen that. I've gone in to pay somebody's taxes and found out that their entity with the state was wrong. And so then, you have to refile all these entity things. And meanwhile, the sales tax due date has long gone, and it just can be really messy. So it is best to make sure that you have all of your ducks in a row, that all of your filings have been updated with the state and everybody who's relevant. So, it's not just about paperwork. It's really about compliance. It's about your intent. It's about having proper oversight and protecting yourself legally and financially, and your ability to continue to operate your business, right? That's what you're trying to do by making sure that you're compliant, is you're protecting yourself. So there's not just mistakes, it's really also missed opportunities. It could be missed opportunities for income, mixed opportunities to protect your profit margins and to build a really big business that's going to make it for a long time. So, and that's what we do. We don't just file forms, we build systems. And if you would like to reach out to us, I'll put the contact information in the description below. Thank you.